Once upon a time, in a small village nestled among the hills, there lived a woodcutter named Joseph. Joseph was known throughout the village for his hard work and honesty. Every day he would venture into the forest to gather wood to sell at the market. One sunny morning, as Joseph was chopping wood near a river, his axe slipped from his hand and fell into the river with a splash. Devastated, Joseph watched as his only means of livelihood disappeared into the depths of the water. He sat by the riverbank, feeling helpless and worried about how he would support his family without his axe. Just then, a magical creature emerged from the river. It was a water nymph, shimmering in the sunlight. "Why do you look so sad, dear woodcutter?" she asked. Joseph explained what had happened, and the water nymph took pity on him. With a wave of her hand, she dove into the river and returned, holding not one but two axes, one made of silver and the other made of gold. "These are magical axes," the water nymph explained. "They will never dull or rust, and they will bring you great wealth. But there's a condition. You must always be honest and never misuse them." Overjoyed, Joseph thanked the water nymph and promised to uphold her condition. With the magical axes in hand, he returned home and began his work with renewed vigor. Months passed, and Joseph's wealth grew as he sold the wood from the magical axes. He became the wealthiest woodcutter in the village, and his honesty and hard work earned him the respect of all who knew him. One day, a greedy merchant heard about Joseph's magical axes and became envious. He devised a plan to steal the axes and claim them as his own. Sneaking into Joseph's house while he was asleep, the merchant replaced the magical axes with ordinary ones. The next morning, when Joseph went to the forest to chop wood, he was puzzled to find that the axes were no longer working as they once had. Try as he might, the ordinary axes could not cut through the tough wood. Frustrated and confused, Joseph returned home and examined the axes closely. That's when he noticed the merchant's insignia engraved on them. Realizing what had happened, Joseph felt a pang of sadness, but knew what he had to do. With a heavy heart, Joseph went to the village square and confessed the truth to the villagers. He explained how the merchant had deceived him and replaced the magical axes with ordinary ones. The villagers were shocked by Joseph's honesty and rallied behind him. Together they confronted the merchant and demanded that he return the magical axes to Joseph. Ashamed and guilt-ridden, the merchant confessed to his wrongdoing and returned the axes. From that day on, Joseph continued to use the magical axes to support his family and serve the village. His honesty and integrity became legendary, and he inspired others to always choose the path of truth, no matter the cost. And so, the village learned a valuable lesson: that honesty is the greatest treasure of all, worth more than all the gold and silver in the world. And they lived happily ever after, guided by the example of the honest woodcutter, Joseph.